Good morning. I want to ask you all now to forgive me. Sometimes when I tell my story and I talk about the Lord and what He's done in my life, it can tend to tear me up. So if it happens, just give me a moment and I'll get right back to it. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. Currently, I attend First Assembly of God. I've been there for 14 years, and I own a barbershop in the city of Worcester. I also just finished an electrical school last October, and I am an electrical apprentice. I work as an electrician during the week, and I run my business also. I'm telling you that because it's been a long journey to get there. There was a time in my life where I was poor, very poor. And there are different types of poverty. There's different reasons why people become poor. There's generational poverty, which in that sense, your mother's mother, your mother's parents, their parents were poor, and it just kind of passes along. There's systemic poverty, which is a poverty where people are poor because of the system and kind of the way that it works. And there's situational or circumstantial poverty where people become poor because of circumstance, a loss of a job or things like that. I was poor from generational poverty. My mother was poor. Her parents were poor. She came from a family of 10. And she only had 2 children, but she was a single mom raising us. And if my mom were here today and I've asked her if she were poor, and out of embarrassment, she's denied that she was poor. And I kind of had to, point different factors out to her because there's an embarrassment that comes with being poor. See, the devil uses poverty. That's his den. There's things that we need as people: food, shelter, water. When we don't have those things, the devil can use those moments of weakness to prey on you. Simple things like sugar. You think, well, let me ask my neighbor, and your neighbor has a need too, so maybe there's a condition with that sugar that you're going to borrow, something that your neighbor wants from you. And sometimes those things, they're not godly. And there's all kinds of ransoms and negotiations and fighting to get the basic needs that you need. And then you have a society where there's news that talks about how the poor are draining us and hurting us. And the poor are watching that. And it just oppresses a little more and oppresses a little more. And you begin to feel like you're nothing, that you're the cause for all the problems in the world. And I'm speaking about a poverty minus God. When you don't have God in your life and you don't know God and you're in those trenches, you're living in that life, you don't understand what love really is. Love comes with all kinds of conditions in that environment, and a lot of times conditions that take away your dignity and self-respect. And so I had a child at the age of 14, and I was on my own. I ended up in shelters, and at the age of 14, when I was pregnant, a friend invited me to church, and I learned about Jesus, and I said, wow. I said, there's somebody that loves you, even though you did all these bad things, even though you did all these wrong things. And if anybody knows what I'm talking about, when you first come to know Jesus, it's a journey. It's a long journey. And over the course of the years, I felt, once I learned who Jesus was, I felt worse, because I felt like, well, you got to do better, Shanel. You got to do better. You got to do better. You got to do better. And I would push and I would push. And I stayed in school and I pushed and I pushed and I pushed. And I would say, I'm going to be better, God. I'm going to be better. And then somewhere in my 20s, God came to me and he said, Shanel, you're a sinner. That's what you are. You can't change that. But I can. Give it to me. Let me lead your life. Stop trying to force these things. You are not in control. I am. If you were, you would have changed these sins long ago. I can do it for you if you let me. And I surrendered myself to him. And I sat in First Assembly for 11 years in the back of the church, far back, like way up there. And I felt like, oh, I can't go down there. I'm not good enough. And God said, you are good enough, and you're ready. And I have things that I need you to do, so I need you to get out of your way and let me show you. And I was baptized 2 years ago, and in the course of my baptism, you have to take classes, and I spoke with Pastor Brian, which is the pastor of First Assembly, and he asked me what my goal was in my faith. And I said, I've always had this personal relationship with God, but I've always been afraid to share that relationship with others. And I pray that God will strengthen me to be able to do that. And almost a year later, and things that had happened in between time, I was invited to a small outreach in Great Brook Valley. And I went there and I met Pastor Rob, who is the senior person of Convoy of Hope. And we worked together for that day, and I left. And the funny thing is that when he called me to ask me to do it, he said, Shanel, do you want to come out and minister in Great Brook Valley? And I said, yeah. And so I prayed and I said, God, this is it. I'm going to have a chance. I'm going to share my story, and I'm going to talk to people about God, and I'm going to tell them how wonderful he is. I'm going to have an opportunity. And we got there and he says, well, so this is our table and you're going to hand out water all day. And I said, well, I'm going to hand out water. That's not really what I thought. We were here to talk about God. And God showed me that day that just handing out water, I talked to more people about God than I had ever in my life. And I realized at that moment that you don't question God and what he's asking you to do. You go and you do it, and he's going to do his work through you. And I left there that day, and Pastor Rob contacted me a week later and asked me if I would be willing to be an assistant coordinator on the Convoy of Hope. And he said he was going to send me all the information and to pray about it. And when I seen the information, I said, wow, this is a big job. But I immediately said, this is everything that I believe. There's a little girl or a little boy that's going to come out on that day at Convoy of Hope who was just like me, who was lost. And they don't have anybody to show them what unconditional love means. We have a welfare system. We have Section 8 programs and various programs out there to help people. And I don't want to take away from them because there's a need, but there's something missing there. And what's missing there is love. When you walk into those offices, those people have been dealing with people all day. They're frustrated, they're angry, they're irritated. They don't care. You're a number. And I don't want to speak for all because there are some good people that work in the system, but unfortunately, the love is missing there. And there's only one love that's an unconditional love and an unfailing love. And I believe that on the day of Convoy of Hope, there's going to be 1,800 volunteers. There's going to be prayer. So the key piece that's been missing from all the help that our country is trying to give the poor people of our country, the key missing piece is going to be there. Jesus Christ, this is coming in from him. And there's going to be a little kid that's going to sit there and say, wow, all this this food, these haircuts. My dad's getting a haircut. He's able to apply for a job. He's able to fill out a resume. He's able to do everything. He doesn't have to take 7 buses, walk miles, go to one place and get a hassle to be sent to another place. Everything that he needs is going to be there in that one day. And then most importantly, there's going to be people there to pray with these people and say, what is your need? How can we help you? There's a God. His name is Jesus. And if you surrender to him, he will save you from all of this, because he saved me. Then everything that I have accomplished and everything I am would not be possible without God, without his strength. And I know that. And I believe that there are going to be some people there that are going to be saved that day. And so that's why I decided to be a part of Convoy of Hope. And I hope that through prayer, that you'll find it in your hearts to get involved in whatever way that God moves you to do so. Thank you.